Chapter 171. You Deserve to Die. Nicholas was unsure why Matthew helped Willow, but $3 million was an enormous figure for any ordinary person, a figure that one had no reason to resist. He could never earn this much in his whole life being a security guard. $3 million was nothing to the Archer family. I don't need your goddamn money. Willow lent me a hand when I needed it the most back then. I couldn't thank her enough. Matthew rejected at once. Willow didn't expect her kind act to have such a big impact on Matthew. In fact, she only took out $50,000 to help Matthew in his emergency. Upon listening to it, Miranda also roughly understood what was going on. Hence, it wasn't surprising that Matthew would risk everything to help Willow. How daring of you to lust after Willow. Let me teach you a lesson. Matthew was boiling in rage. I'm the boss here. If you dare to hit me, I'll sack you now, Nicholas yelled. I don't care who the hell you are. Going to beat up anyone who lays a hand on Willow. I'd rather lose this job, Matthew responded fiercely. Immediately after, he kicked Nicholas squarely in his chest. Nicholas howled, frowned, and then flew out. He could feel a taste of blood in his throat before he collapsed to the ground. At this moment, Nicholas was crying inside. Caspian had taught him a harsh lesson last time. He thought he had prepared seamlessly after learning from previous experience. But, again, he got beaten up by Matthew when he was so close to succeeding. Willow, quickly get out of here, said Matthew. Willow and Miranda held each other's hands and were ready to leave the hotel. Just then, Willow was reminded of something. They snatched our phones. There's a lot of important things in there, said Willow. It was not the phone, however, the information stored inside that was important. I'll get it back for you, Matthew assured. Later, Willow pointed to the person who snatched her phone. Matthew ran over and delivered a fierce kick to that person. The person, who was already injured, was now fainted. After getting back their phones, Willow and Miranda followed Matthew into the elevator, ready to leave. Nicholas was enraged when he saw them enter the elevator. He shouted, "Call the security guards on the ground floor to catch them, now." Nicholas thought he had won over Willow, but all his efforts were in vain now. Nicholas was mad to his core. He was very much unwilling to give in. Matthew was formidable, but Harvest Hotel had a lot of security guards. Hence, the security guards held the advantage of dealing with him. Nicholas was determined to rape Willow and Miranda today, no matter what. Nicholas walked into another elevator with the help of a few subordinates. Over in the elevator, Willow expressed her gratitude to Matthew sincerely. Matthew, it was all thanks to you this time. If not, we would be in danger. Don't mention it, Willow. If you hadn't helped me in the past, my mom's life would have been in danger. So, how could I possibly ignore you when you're in trouble? Matthew waved his hand and said. Willow never expected that it would be Matthew who saved her. Thanks to her kind act in the past, they could make it out unharmed today. If it were not for Matthew, she and Miranda would have been raped by Nicholas. Willow, what happened, exactly? How did he trap you here? Matthew asked in confusion. It was a long story. By the way, why are you working here? Asked Willow. I am the breadwinner, remember? So, I simply got a job at the hotel here. I never expected to bump into you here. Matthew scratched his head and said, Willow, it's not the time to reminisce about the old times. We're still in Nicholas's territory, Miranda reminded her. Indeed, it wasn't the time for them to relax now. They could only be considered safe once they left the hotel. I bet Nicholas wouldn't give in easily. I'll call Caspian now. Willow thought of Caspian suddenly. She instantly called him. At the time, Caspian was having a meal with Sylvia and Macy. He immediately picked up the phone when he saw Willow's incoming call. What's the matter, Willow? Caspian asked. Hubby, I'm in trouble. Hurry up, come to Harvest Hotel. I got deceived and fell into the trap of the Archers. Willow explained nervously. After listening to what she said, Caspian felt a bit helpless. He didn't understand why his silly wife kept on falling for the same trick. Don't worry, I'm coming now. Caspian hung up the call without asking much. However, at the mention of Nicholas's name, he couldn't hold in his rage already. How dared that jerk lust after his wife? What happened, Caspian? Sylvia asked eagerly. Willow got tricked by Nicholas at Harvest Hotel. She was trapped there now, Caspian answered. What? She got deceived again? Sylvia asked, surprised. It had only been a few days since the Silverstone Hotel incident. This woman is getting dumber. Caspian shook his head. Caspian, love is blind. Don't you think the reason why she became dumber is because both of you are getting too lovey-dovey recently? Macy said with a chuckle. Keep all your nonsense. Follow me to Harvest Hotel now. Caspian was rushing. He was not in the mood to joke with Macy. On the other hand, what Macy said was right. His relationship with Willow was getting closer and sweeter. Even Caspian himself was too engrossed in that sweetness. Macy, drive to Harvest Hotel to rescue Willow now, Caspian ordered. Macy nodded. When it came to serious matters, she often acted the quickest, unlike in the usual days when she loved to have fun. Caspian and Sylvia got into the SUV. Macy was in the driver's seat. They were rushing to Harvest Hotel at full speed. Willow put her phone away after she hung up the call with Caspian. Just then, the elevator had reached the ground floor. To their surprise, the security guards surrounded them as soon as the elevator door opened. Upon seeing this scene, Willow and Miranda were scared and trembling. Both of you, follow me. I'll bring you out. Matthew barged out without hesitation as soon as he finished his words. Willow and Miranda nodded. It was the only option. As soon as they stepped out of the elevator, the security guards immediately rushed toward them. The security guards surrounded the elevator entrance tightly, leaving no chance for the three of them to escape. Get lost, all of you. Anyone who takes another step forward will be doomed, shouted Matthew. He was fully prepared to face the upcoming fight. How daring of you, bastard, to betray us and help outsiders go against Mr. Archer. I think you're the one who deserved to die instead. The head of the security guard arrogantly berated Matthew. Chapter 172 outnumbered. Don't get too cocky. We still don't know who will win this fight, Matthew said indifferently. Willow and Miranda were terrified as they watched the scene unfold. Unconsciously, they held each other's hands tight. Their safety was in the hands of Matthew now. Just then, Nicholas hurriedly walked out of another elevator with the help of a few people. Mr. Archer, how should I deal with them? The head of the security guard asked as soon as Nicholas walked out of the elevator. Beat the traitor to death. While for the two pretties, send them to my suite upstairs, Nicholas said fiercely. Yes, sir. The security head nodded. How are you not dead yet? I must have kicked you too lightly just now, Matthew said in a mocking tone. I offered you to be my bodyguard, but since you rejected it, I'll never accept your apology even if you kneel to me, Nicholas said. Nicholas thought Matthew was a fool for deciding to help Willow, rather than accept his offer to become his bodyguard. Enough of the nonsense. Come at me. Then, I, Matthew Brown, am not afraid at all. Matthew was full of confidence. Snuff him out. Nicholas gave his order. He did not bother to let Matthew utter another word. The security guards, who were armed with weapons, charged toward Matthew. Matthew gripped the electric baton tightly in his hand. He fearlessly looked around at the 70 to 80 guards surrounding him. Even though Matthew was truly skillful, he was still way behind Caspian. To deal with 70 to 80 people alone would be a tough challenge. The security guards greatly outnumbered him, making the fight all the more difficult. The security guards were beating his back and head with electric batons. After a while, his face and body were covered in blood. Willow and Miranda could not bear to see Matthew in such a miserable state. They even could not bring themselves to continue watching. They could only do nothing but stand there. The feeling of helplessness was overwhelming. Nicholas had gotten excited as he saw Matthew was severely injured. He had thought that Matthew was as formidable as Caspian, but it seemed that he was not that impressive after all. All right. It's time to send the two ladies to my suite for me to vent my desire. Nicholas waved his hand and said. The outcome was set. Nicholas could not bother to continue watching as he could not wait to spend some fun time with the ladies. Nicholas's subordinates surrounded and arrested both Willow and Miranda. Let go of me, you jerks. Help. Willow and Miranda were struggling desperately, shouting for help at the top of their lungs. but it was all in vain. The two weak ladies were, of course, no match for the security guards. They were pushed into the elevator by the security guards. "Stop!" Matthew shouted and tried to barge forward. However, the guards defended aggressively. He was surrounded by the guards, and he had nowhere to escape. Looking at how hard Matthew was struggling, Nicholas was even satisfied. After he entered the elevator, he even provoked Matthew by pointing his middle finger at him. Matthew knew too well what would happen to Willow and Miranda once they were taken to Nicholas's room. Hence, he fought fiercely and finally broke himself free. But then, the elevator doors had closed up. Willow and Miranda were in the hands of Nicholas's subordinates. Both of them looked very afraid as the elevator rose to the 10th floor. They initially thought they were safe. They never expected Nicholas to show his last card. The situation turned even worse with Matthew being cornered and at risk of being beaten up to death by the security guards. "I'd see how you still escaped now," Nicholas proudly said. "Nicholas Archer, have you already forgotten the lesson Caspian had given you last time? You'd better let us go now before you are doomed." Now, she could only put her hope on Caspian. "This is different from the last time. Without your phone, you can't seek help from Caspian. Just serve me obediently tonight." He had begun to imagine erotic scenes in his mind. "See this? I just called Caspian. You'll be in big trouble if you don't let us go." Willow took out her phone and waved it in front of Nicholas. Nicholas was stunned for a second when he saw the phone. Then, his expression darkened. At this point, he did not want to give in. As long as he could have his fill with Willow and Miranda tonight, it did not matter if he would die, even if I die. "I would rather die after ravishing you both," Nicholas said with a wicked smile. To Willow and Miranda's surprise, Nicholas dared to risk everything that he was not even afraid of dying. Nicholas was accompanied by around 20 subordinates at Silverstone Hotel last time. The situation this time was different since he had more than 100 men with him. If Caspian dared to show up, it would be the best opportunity for him to take revenge. Nicholas felt more confident when he thought about it. The elevator arrived at the 10th floor. Nicholas's subordinates brought Willow and Miranda to his suite room. Willow did not want to miss any chance to seek help. She tried to shout several times, but all her pleas were ignored. It was impossible for Matthew, who was trapped downstairs, to come and save them. "Guard the corridor and make sure no one comes near. If Caspian dared to approach, kill him directly. I'll reward you generously," Nicholas instructed his subordinates after he entered the suite. Willow and Miranda were shoved into the suite room. The room was filled with a faint fragrance, and the floor was scattered with fresh red roses. Nicholas closed the door. He was extremely excited thinking about the sexy scenes coming up next. He had waited long for this moment. Finally, his dream was coming true today. Matthew was worried. He knew that Willow and Miranda must have been taken into Nicholas's suite. He desperately wanted to rush to the 10th floor and rescue Willow and Miranda. But he could not even free himself now. The security guards launched a new round of attacks against Matthew. Within a few minutes, Matthew could no longer withstand the attacks, and eventually, he collapsed. His face was bloody, and even his vision was blurry. "Beat him up. Where's your spirit earlier? Beat him hard," the head of the security guard shouted when he saw Matthew had collapsed. Just as the security guards wanted to attack Matthew, a man and two women entered the hotel. They were Caspian, Sylvia, and Macy. As soon as Caspian entered, he saw a group of security guards bashing a young man. Caspian felt confused as he noticed the young man was wearing the security uniform as well. "Caspian, is that you? Help me." Through blurry vision, Matthew saw Caspian and the others and sought help. Matthew never met Caspian in person before, but he had seen the wedding pictures of Caspian and Willow online. "Save him first," Caspian instructed. "All right." Sylvia and Macy rushed over. Caspian was afraid to split his wound open again. Therefore, he did not join the fight. He let Sylvia and Macy handle it since it was not a big-scale fight. Caspian looked around but could not see Willow and Miranda anywhere. He thought things did not bode well. At the same time, Macy and Sylvia charged and launched their attacks on the security guards. Chapter 173. I rather die while aroused. Cries of agony rang out among the crowd in the hotel lobby. Sylvia and Macy settled them fast and clean. At this moment, Matthew, who was on the ground, felt relief as he saw hope at the end of the tunnel. Just now, he was by Willow's side when she called Caspian. He fought with his last bit of strength, all in anticipation of Caspian's arrival. Come on, snuff them out. The head of the security guard shouted. The security guards began to fight back when they heard the order. However, they were no match for Sylvia and Macy. Both women attacked fiercely. Soon, half of the guards were knocked out. Caspian, Willow was brought to the 10th floor. Matthew pointed to the elevator. At that time, the number on the elevator remained at 10. Caspian was stunned. He then realized that it must have been Nicholas who had taken Willow. Caspian could not wait any longer. He rushed up the stairs as fast as he could. His running speed was definitely faster than the rising speed of the elevator, given the extreme situation. Moreover, the elevator could stop in between, and this would only drag him down. At this moment, Caspian could not care about his leg injuries and rushed upstairs. Sylvia and Macy were still cleaning up the scene. They felt relieved as they saw Caspian had headed upstairs. Once the Diateranian god of war was involved, Willow would be saved. Over on the 10th floor in the luxury suite, Nicholas could not wait to ravage Willow and Miranda. What do you want to do? Willow fearfully asked when she saw Nicholas's wicked expression. What else do you think I should do on a spring night? To have fun with both of you, of course, Nicholas said with a chuckle. Stay away, Miranda shouted. But Nicholas could not hold back any longer. He was blinded by his lust now. Both of you have exquisite figures and pretty faces. I don't know who to start with, so how about having both at the same time? Nicholas smirked. Willow and Miranda swiftly ran toward the door as they saw Nicholas approach closer and closer. Help! Anyone out there! Help! Willow and Miranda shouted desperately. Their effort went in vain. They could not open the door no matter what. Willow and Miranda felt utterly hopeless. Was there anyone they could count on now? It seemed like they couldn't run from their horrible fate today. They are all my men out there. You can't escape. Even if you scream for help, it's useless. So, just give up, Nicholas said with a malicious smile. Nicholas Archer, it's still not too late for you to stop. Once Caspian arrives, you're dead meat, Willow said furiously. Stop threatening me with Caspian. If he dares to show himself today, I'll not let him off, Nicholas said fiercely. He had been thinking of taking revenge against Caspian. Willow, I'm so in love with you, but why do you turn a blind eye to me? You're seriously driving me crazy. You know what? I can risk anything for you. Nicholas, who didn't seem to be in his right mind, told Willow. He did not understand where he fell short compared to Caspian. He had a prominent background in South Lake City. However, to Willow, his identity was still incomparable to the good. Nothing Caspian. I have no feelings for you at all. It's you who has been bothering me, Willow said it impatiently. Nicholas was even furious with Willow's cold attitude. He had decided to ravage Willow tonight. Hence, he pounced on Willow eagerly. He had been longing for this moment, and he knew he could not waste any more time. Otherwise, once Caspian arrived, his plans would surely be disrupted. Besides, the air in the room was filled with a special kind of incense. After some time, Willow and Miranda would lose their consciousness. Then, he could do as he wished by that time. Just then, a loud sound came from the door, and the door was kicked open. Nicholas was startled. Even Willow and Miranda did not expect this sudden interruption. They looked toward the door and found that Nicholas's subordinates, who were guarding outside, had collapsed. At the same time, an enraged man came in. Willow and Miranda were pleasantly surprised to see him. Caspian was finally here. Who are you to interrupt me, bastard? Nicholas shouted furiously with his back facing the door. Someone had interrupted his fun time with Willow. He turned around and found out it was Caspian. He was completely dumbfounded. Meanwhile, his subordinates were all taken down by Caspian. lying flat in the corridor. Caspian! You finally came. Willow's eyes were hopeful. Caspian thought he was late. However, he felt relieved after making sure both Willow and Miranda were fine, which meant Nicholas had not touched them yet. Thank God you came on time. If not, we too would have been in trouble, Willow said. At this moment, Caspian was boiling with rage. He did not bother to comfort Willow. Nicholas was afraid of Caspian, who was approaching him with a chilling aura. Hence, he took a few steps back and shouted, "Gee, get away from me." He could not figure out how Caspian could reach the 10th floor in such a short time. He thought the security guards on the ground floor were all useless, as they did not manage to stop Caspian. Caspian ignored Nicholas and walked toward him step by step. Nicholas was trembling in fear. "Nicholas Archer, you didn't change at all. After repeatedly trying to rape my wife, I have not choice but to kill you," Caspian said in an indifferent tone. "Please, don't. I beg you, Caspian. Please give me one more chance. I'll never do that again." Even though Nicholas thought that death was nothing to him earlier, he still felt terrified when the time came. "It's too late. I had given you a chance, but you took it for granted," Caspian said coldly. Then, Caspian kicked him. "Wait," Nicholas shouted. "Any last words before you die? Quick, this is your last chance." Caspian paused his action, wanting to see what other tricks Nicholas had up his sleeves. "Let me go. I can help partner up the Archers and Southlake Corporation," Nicholas negotiated. He knew very well that Southlake Corporation needed a business partner. The Archer Group was the most suitable partner in the entire Southlake City. No need. "Are you done? Time to send you to death then," said Caspian expressionlessly. Nicholas was dumbfounded as he did not expect Caspian to reject his offer without hesitation. "Wait a minute. I didn't mean to plot against Willow. I was just obeying my parents' orders. They are the ones who you should settle the score with. Nicholas even betrayed his parents just to save his own life. I will settle them sooner or later. None of you from the Archer family can escape," Caspian replied indifferently. He let Nicholas off the last time, but he turned out to be even more annoying by attempting to bother Willow again. This time, for the sake of Willow's safety, Caspian had to get rid of Nicholas completely. Chapter 174, A Leopard Cannot Change Its Spots. "Don't kill me, please. If not, you will be arrested by the Inspector General," Nicholas said anxiously. After listening to what Nicholas said, Caspian smiled. As the Diateranian god of war, why would he still be afraid of that mere threat? "Caspian, why don't you teach him a lesson and then let him off? It's not worth being taken to the Inspector General's office just because of someone like him." Willow tried persuading Caspian, who was determined to end Nicholas's life. Caspian was rendered speechless. However, he could understand Willow's concern, as she did not know his true identity. "I can spare him," said Caspian. Upon listening to what Caspian said, Nicholas's expression brightened. Once he left this place safely, he would use all the power of the Archers to deal with Caspian. "I can spare your life, but I'm going to castrate you." Caspian changed his tone. Nicholas was scared to the core. He immediately begged for mercy. "Please, don't do that to me. I beg you to give me a way out. I don't want to lose my manhood." "They said a leopard can't change its spot. I remember you said the same thing the last time at Silverstone Hotel. I had given you a chance, but you haven't changed at all. I must teach you a lasting lesson today," Caspian said indifferently. Help me." Nicholas felt completely helpless at this moment, but nobody could help him. His subordinates were all defeated by Caspian. The rest of the security guards were trapped on the ground floor. Now, he had no one to turn to. "Shut up." As soon as Caspian finished speaking, he kicked fiercely at Nicholas's crotch. Cry of agony rang out throughout the entire hotel. Nicholas's expression twisted in pain. He was tossing and turning on the ground. Even Willow and Miranda felt the punishment was too cruel. "Willow, Ms. Barton, let's go," Caspian said to the two pretty ladies. Now, Nicholas was infertile and had gotten the punishment he deserved. They had no point staying here any longer. Willow and Miranda nodded. Then, they left the room together with Caspian. Both ladies felt satisfied seeing Nicholas lose his manhood. This jerk could never harm other girls from now on. Why did you come to the Archer's place again? Caspian asked Willow. Willow felt guilty and told the whole story to Caspian. After listening to her story, Caspian frowned. Don't you know the Archers? Why did you still believe them? If Southlake Corporation faces difficulties, just tell me. I'll think of a way to solve them. How could those greedy Archers possibly offer you a collaboration? Next time, think before you act. Caspian lectured Willow out of anger. If she was not taught a lesson this time, she would definitely be tricked again next time. Why are you scolding me? Southlake Corporation is currently in big trouble. While you can't help, I am also very stressed. What I am doing is all for the sake of stabilizing the company. Who knew the Archer family would be so despicable? Willow felt wronged. She was about to cry because of Caspian. All right, I am just saying out of worry. Next time, if something like this happens, you can consult me first, Caspian said while wrapping his strong arm around Miranda, who was at the scene, was speechless as she watched the lovey-dovey couple. Willow felt somehow protected in Caspian's arms. Her grievance earlier vanished into thin air in an instant. Also, Ms. Barton, you've been in Southlake Corporation for so many years, shouldn't you figure out the Archer's real goal? As the vice president, I think you should have stopped Willow, don't you think so? Caspian let go of Willow and continued to speak to Miranda. They were lucky that Caspian had arrived on time. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Miranda felt wronged upon listening to Caspian's words. She was only the vice president, while Willow was the CEO. She dared not to refuse Willow's order to come together. It wasn't Miranda's fault. I insisted on bringing her along. Willow immediately explained when Caspian reprimanded Miranda. All right, I got it, but no next time. I might be able to save you once or twice, but what if I don't arrive in time for the third time? Who will save you both? Said Caspian. I understand. Let's quickly go downstairs to check on Matthew first. Willow instantly shifted the topic. Don't worry. He's fine, Caspian answered without much emotion. Then, three of them entered the elevator. By the way, who's Matthew? I figure he's a security guard here. But why would he save you? Caspian remembered the security guard on the ground floor, whose face was bloody, knew him by name. Hence, Caspian roughly figured out what was going on, but he still had some doubts. Willow then shared the story of how she helped Matthew's family in the past. What a coincidence. If it wasn't for him, the situation would have been very dangerous. Don't make such a mistake next time. People like Nicholas Archer will never change. You should be on guard against the Archers from now on, Caspian reminded Willow. I understood. Willow nodded. She had gone through a lot, so she also knew that some people were too far gone and would never change. Caspian understood Willow as well. But to him, the crisis faced by Southlake Corporation was nothing at all. The elevator doors opened on the first floor. Willow and Miranda were dumbfounded when they saw the scene in front of them. At this moment, at the hotel lobby, all 100 of the security guards were knocked down. The guests who came to the hotel were all scared away. To Caspian, the scene was no surprise. The security guards were no match for Sylvia and Macy. Matthew stood up. He was stunned as he looked at the scene in front of him. He had just witnessed Sylvia and Macy fight. He was impressed by the terrifying combat power of the two women. What was even more absurd was the muscular strength they possessed as women. Matthew, are you all right? Willow ran to Matthew and asked him with concern. If it were not for Matthew, they would be in great danger. Willow could not bear to see Matthew all bloody and hurt. I'm fine, Willow. These are just some scratches, Matthew replied without much energy. Seeing how energetic Willow and Miranda appeared, he knew Caspian had successfully stopped Nicholas. Sylvia, send him to Southlake Hospital for Avon to treat him, Caspian instructed. Forget about going to the hospital. People of my status don't deserve to go to such a place. I don't have the money to spend there. Matthew felt a little embarrassed. Just go. My friend is in that hospital. He'll treat you for free, Caspian said. He knew Matthew was concerned about the medical fees. Hence, he tried to dispel his worries. In the end, Matthew accepted the offer and nodded in acknowledgement. The security guards lay scattered on the ground. Some of them broke their arms, while some broke their legs. They could only let Caspian and the others go as they did not have the energy and the courage to stop them. Caspian and the others then headed toward Southlake Hospital. Chapter 175. You are the cure. After Dord City, Easton was the most prosperous city in Diatoran. Here, the skyscrapers stood tall. It was a paradise for the wealthy and a hell for the poor. Some seized opportunities and achieved great heights here, while others grieved over losing their family and all fortunes here. Mahayan Pavilion was the greatest force in Easton. The force had existed in Easton for more than 100 years. At the headquarters of Mahayan Pavilion, a man was kneeling with one knee on the ground, while looking at the person sitting high before him. Lord Jennings, I begged you to seek revenge for Sir Leon. The Reaper pleaded with a sorrowful expression. The news of Leonardo's assassination had already spread. When the Reaper learned about it, his heart was filled with immense sorrow. Hence, he rushed to Mahayan Pavilion in Easton at full speed. Wiley, who was sitting on a high platform, had a slight change in expression. As the master of Mahayan Pavilion, he possessed significant authority. He was astonished by the news of Leonardo's death. Leonardo had established his foothold in the Two Lakes area for so many years. Logically speaking, there should not be anyone capable of harming him in the Two Lakes area. Moreover, he was a formidable fighter. That meant the person who killed Leonardo was by no means an ordinary individual. Seeing that Wiley stayed silent, the Reaper became a bit anxious. Lord Jennings, the Reaper continued. Before the Reaper could finish speaking, Wiley raised his hand and said, "Don't rush. Leonardo was like a brother to me. I'll definitely avenge him. But we need to plan this carefully. It seems that you're badly injured as well. I'll send someone to take you for a rest first." The Reaper nodded. It was not an appropriate time for him to make any demands since he was the one seeking help. Hence, he could only step back for now. After the Reaper left, the old Warner, who was dressed in black, emerged. "Lord, this is a good chance for us to expand our territory," the old Warner said joyfully. With Leonardo's death, the distribution of forces in the Two Lakes area would undergo a reshuffle. If Mahayan Pavilion sent its people to the Two Lakes area now, its influence would definitely double. Of course I know it's a good chance, but we must not act recklessly. Leonardo's death means there's someone formidable in the Two Lakes area, and we must be extra careful. Wiley's expression turned serious as he contemplated his plans. He had always been cautious and prudent when acting. Otherwise, he would not be able to hold the position of the master of Mahayan Pavilion. "Lord, shall we observe the situation and wait for now?" the old Warner asked with respect. "Waiting is the dumbest option. Lead a few people to investigate the current situation in the Two Lakes area. Find out who killed Leonardo. It's not too late for us to make our move then," Wiley ordered. Wiley thought acting recklessly, without understanding the whole situation, would bring imminent danger. Hence, it was better to be safe than sorry. "Yes, my lord." The old Warner nodded. Wiley certainly desired to expand his influence in the Two Lakes area, but things were volatile in Easton as well. A slight misstep could lead to irreparable consequences. Once Caspian took Matthew to the hospital, he got Avon to check on Matthew's injuries immediately. At a glance, Avon could identify Matthew's issues. He was severely injured both externally and internally. Your internal injuries are way more serious than your external injuries. You've to get treated now. Otherwise, there will be after effects, said Avon. Matthew was extremely surprised by Avon, who could diagnose him clearly with just a glance. Also, Matthew had pre-existing illnesses. If not, it should not be an issue for him to deal with the security guards today. Soon after that, Avon stopped talking and began treating Matthew. Avon first took out a brown pill and had Matthew swallow it directly. Meanwhile, outside the ward, Willow and Miranda felt lightheaded and weak, looking like they were about to pass out any time. "Hubby, I am feeling dizzy suddenly. How about you send me home first?" Willow said weakly. Me, too. I felt unwell all of a sudden. I think I need some rest. Miranda's face turned peach red, and her body felt strange. Caspian felt something was not right about Willow and Miranda. How about letting Avon check on both of you? Caspian suggested. Caspian brought Willow and Miranda to the ward. Avon, please check on them. They said they suddenly felt dizzy and lightheaded. Caspian explained to Avon once Willow and Miranda sat down. Avon dared not disobey Caspian's order. He immediately checked on Willow and Miranda. At this point, Willow and Miranda were in a daze and about to pass out. Caspian, it's not a big deal. Willow and this lady are just affected by a special kind of drug. Avon spoke halfway and then exchanged a glance, attempting to signal something with his eyes. Caspian suddenly realized that it must be Nicholas who had drugged the two of them, and now the drug was taking effect. Then, do you have the cure? Quick, take it out, Caspian urged. He was afraid that Willow would embarrass herself in front of everyone. Caspian, in fact, you can also cure your wife. You're the cure. Avon smirked. Stop joking. I don't know anything about medicine, and besides, how could I possibly be the cure? Caspian said somewhat helplessly. You just have to bring Willow back and make love with her. Then, the drug will wear out naturally. Avon stopped beating around the bush and said directly. Upon hearing this, Willow and Miranda were a bit embarrassed. How could he talk about sex openly in front of everyone? Miranda was especially speechless. Willow could be cured by Caspian, but what about her? She could not seek help from Caspian either. Stop your nonsense. Just tell me if you have the antidote or not. Caspian rolled his eyes. It seemed inappropriate to talk about such a matter in public. Yes, I do have the antidote. Don't be angry, Caspian. Avon instantly took out a specially customized antidote. How did they get drugged? Caspian asked with doubt. Given the lesson from last time, Willow should not have taken a drink from Nicholas again. The drug was probably mixed with some aromatic substances in the air, Avon explained. Then, both Willow and Miranda took the antidote. They regained their consciousness after a few minutes. On the other side, Vince rushed toward Harvest Hotel together with Susan. They received news that their beloved son, Nicholas, was now infertile. Once they reached the luxury suite in the hotel, the couple were heartbroken to see their precious son writhing on the floor in extreme pain. Nicholas, are you all right? Susan squatted in front of Nicholas and asked worriedly. Mom, I'm infertile. I don't want to live anymore. Nicholas said in pain. Hang in there. I'm sending you to the hospital now, Susan said anxiously. Soon after, she ordered the subordinates. Send Mr. Archer to South Lake Hospital right now. The Archers hurriedly carried Nicholas out in chaos. Chapter 176, Seize the Moment. Vince erupted in anger as he interrogated his subordinates. So many of you were with the sir, yet he still got injured. It's all Caspian's fault. He was so ruthless that we couldn't beat him. Yeah, and his two subordinates were powerful too. Didn't even have time to react before he defeated us. The bodyguards chimed in one after another. When Caspian appeared, they didn't even have the chance to strike before he took them down. Hearing this, Vince sighed heavily. There was no way so many people were lying. They were all specialized bodyguards. It seemed that Caspian was indeed not as simple as he appeared on the surface. Check if anyone else is injured. Send them all to the hospital, Vince said. The bodyguards nodded and didn't dare to waste another second. Meanwhile, Caspian was at South Lake Hospital. If everyone's okay, let's all head back, he said. Since the trouble was resolved and the injuries were tended to, staying longer served no purpose. All right, Matthew, where do you live? Caspian and I will drive you back, Willow said. Matthew was injured because of her, so it was only right to send him home. Willow, I'll just take a cab. You guys go ahead, Matthew replied. It's no trouble. I'm glad that you were around today. It's definitely not convenient for you to get home by yourself now that you're injured. Willow insisted. Matthew nodded in agreement and stopped refusing her. Shortly after, the group left the hospital. Unexpectedly, they collided with a group of people just as they reached the hospital's entrance. Members of the Archer family were rushing Nicholas into the hospital. When Nicholas saw Caspian, he was instantly startled. "Mom, Dad, he's Caspian. He's the one who hurt me." Nicholas pointed at Caspian. Vince and Susan were instantly filled with rage seeing their enemy right before their eyes. "Caspian, it's all because of you that my son is in such a terrible state. This isn't over between us," Vince said viciously. "Nicholas had evil intentions and repeatedly harmed my wife. I warned him before, and he brought this upon himself. As for you two, as his parents, you should discipline him. If anything like this happens again, don't blame me for dealing with all of you together," Caspian said coldly. "Who are you to speak to us in such a tone? Get them. Teach them a lesson," Susan said angrily. Caspian was just the son-in-law of the Stewart family, a third-rate family in South Lake City at most. Sylvia and Macy immediately positioned themselves in front of Caspian, ready to take action. The bodyguards who had previously fought with Sylvia and Macy were terrified upon seeing them step forward and ran away. However, the guards brought by Vince hadn't experienced the prowess of these two women and recklessly charged forward. Sylvia and Macy wasted no time, immediately engaging in combat. A few seconds later, all of Archer family's bodyguards were defeated and writhing in pain on the ground. They never expected these two beauties to be so formidable. At this moment, they realized the true terror of Sylvia and Macy. "Caspian, how should we deal with them?" Sylvia pointed at Vince and Susan. "Capture them and teach them a lesson," Caspian said coldly. "Yes." Sylvia nodded and immediately charged forward. They apprehended both Vince and Susan. "What are you doing? What right do you have to arrest me?" Susan shouted. Vince struggled to set himself free, but it was useless. When Nicholas saw this scene, he dared not utter a word. He had experienced firsthand how ruthless Caspian could be. "Kneel down and apologize to me," Caspian said coldly. There was no room for mercy for people like them. They had to be taught a lesson since they only feared the powerful. "Dream on. How could we, the Archer family, kneel and apologize to a useless person like you?" Susan fumed. She had always been pampered at home and had never experienced such humiliation. Meanwhile, Vince stood in silence without uttering a single word. "Sylvia, take action." Caspian was tired of talking and gave a direct command. Sylvia landed a kick on Susan's shin. With a scream of agony, Susan knelt before Caspian. "Caspian, spare some dignity for yourself. You better stop here. Otherwise, we'll go full force against you," Vince said fiercely. The Archer family was a prestigious family in South Lake City, hence they were unwilling to tolerate Caspian's audacity. "And you, kneel and apologize," Caspian commanded coldly. The second Caspian finished his words, Macy delivered a kick to Vince. He too knelt before Caspian. At this moment, Vince felt somewhat helpless. If they continued to fight Caspian and enrage him even more, the situation would only worsen. Many onlookers had gathered outside the hospital to witness the scene. "Caspian, who are you to be so arrogant? Though South Lake Corporation might have won this time, there's still no match for Thousand Glory Corporation. Bankruptcy is inevitable. Only by working with the Archer family can you be saved," Susan retorted. "Sylvia, silence her." Caspian couldn't be bothered to deal with such people himself. Dealing with a malicious woman like Susan would dirty his hands. Sylvia nodded. She raised her hand and delivered a slap to Susan. A crisp sound echoed. Sylvia showed no mercy, so Susan ended up staggering before rolling on the ground. Watching this scene, Willow and Miranda found it satisfying. The Archer family indeed needed a lesson. "Susan." Vince felt a pang of heartache when he saw his beloved wife suffer. He quickly stood up and ran over. At this point, Susan bore finger marks on her face, and blood trickled from her mouth. "Vince, you spineless coward. You're standing here and watching me suffer without doing anything. Fight back. Do something." Susan screamed. She had never experienced such humiliation. But Vince dared not lay a hand on Caspian. He had witnessed Sylvia and Macy's fighting skills. Rushing in now would be suicidal. "Susan, there'll be opportunities. We'll settle the score with Caspian later, Vince said. Their current situation was highly unfavorable. For now, the best choice was to endure. I must have been blind to marry a bastard like you. You're even more pathetic than that useless Caspian. Susan continued to berate Vince. Vince was speechless, but the wisest choice for now was to stay silent. Let's go. Let's not waste time with these people. Caspian waved his hand, and the group followed him out of the hospital. Vince and Susan watched helplessly as Caspian departed, unable to do anything. Vince could only lead his injured subordinates into the hospital. Chapter 177, Leave Diatorin. Caspian and Willow drove Matthew home. At the same time, she instructed Matthew to join Southlake Corporation as the head of the security team. The salary given to him was triple his original salary with additional bonuses. Matthew gladly accepted the offer without hesitation. The next day, he reported to Southlake Corporation and became the new head of the security team. Meanwhile, Caspian drove Stephanie to Southlake Hospital to pick up Elias. For the past few days, Southlake City had been relatively peaceful. The Archer family didn't dare to trouble Caspian and Willow anymore. They hoped that Glorious Group would step in to deal with Southlake Corporation. As for Glorious Group, upon learning of Leonardo's death, they became more restrained. They shifted their focus to finding the veins in Dragon's Hill. The special forces from Tigra entered the mountain every night and exited before dawn. However, their every move was under Sylvia's surveillance. She had people continuously monitor Dragon's Hill. Every day, Sylvia timely reported their activities to Caspian. This relatively calm undercurrent in Southlake City lasted for about a week. Mr. Taylor, we've found the specific entrance to the veins, Bob said with excitement. Well done. Any discoveries? Besides the veins, are there any valuable treasures? Taylor asked eagerly. They had finally located the entrance to the veins, and were about to start extensive mining. Not yet. We can't proceed further. It seems the veins are protected. There's a huge stone door underground, and it's hard to open it without equipment, Bob answered helplessly. They had attempted various methods but couldn't open the sturdy stone door. Why not just blast it open? Taylor suggested. We've tried explosives but still couldn't open it. The stone door is incredibly solid, Bob replied, taking out his phone and showing several photos to Taylor. Taylor leaned in to carefully examine the photos of the underground stone door. He found there was something mysterious about the door. A huge cosmic octagonal nexus disk was carved on the door, seemingly holding some kind of secret. On either side of the stone door were words that said, "Break the disk, enter this door." Taylor was completely clueless about these things. He never imagined that the stone door would have such a secret. The cosmic octagonal nexus disk was an ancient heritage of Diatorin, and this had him stumped. Mr. Taylor, this is a unique cosmic octagonal nexus disk of Diatorin. We can't decipher it at all. What should we do next? Bob asked in distress. Send these photos back to Tigra. We have many capable people there. Surely someone will know the secret behind this cosmic octagonal nexus disk. Once the secret is unlocked, we'll gain access to the treasures behind the door, Taylor exclaimed excitedly. They were just one step away from the treasure. If they managed to transport all the minerals and treasures back to Tigra, Dahlia would surely reward them generously. I understand. Bob nodded. Now that we've found the entrance, let's halt our actions for the time being. Don't go to Dragon's Hill as frequently. If our movements are exposed, our plan will be ruined. Once we receive word from Tigra, we'll head to Dragon's Hill to break the cosmic octagonal nexus disk, Taylor said. Should we continue with our plan to assassinate Caspian? Bob inquired. Originally, they were planning to work with Leonardo to assassinate Caspian, but his demise had derailed their plans. There's no need to rush it. Assassinating Caspian is a matter of time. Let's figure out how to excavate the veins and treasures. The matter of assassinating Caspian can wait, Taylor pondered and said. After a period of treatment at Southlake Hospital, Lana had almost recovered. However, she had used up her hospitalization funds. Upon learning this, Caspian decided to cover some of her remaining expenses until she fully recovered. With the changing season, The hospital was crowded with many people seeking treatment. The payment counter was packed with people, and Caspian queued up at the end. After waiting for a long time, a tall and burly foreign man made his way to the very front of the line, just as it was about to be Caspian's turn. Caspian was a little annoyed and ready to reprimand him. A middle-aged woman nearby couldn't tolerate it, and was the first to shout angrily, "Why are you cutting in line?" "Cut the nonsense. I'm in a hurry," the tall man said indifferently. "Who do you think you are? Can't you see everyone is queuing? It's so uncivilized of you to cut the line." The middle-aged woman continued to criticize him. Everyone was in a hurry. Hence, nobody could tolerate him cutting in line. "Shut up. I'll cut in if I want to. Can you do anything about it? I'll knock you out if you don't keep quiet." The tall man raised his fist impatiently. When the woman saw his intimidating attitude, she didn't dare to say anything further. At this moment, the intern doctor, Carmen, rushed over. Although she felt infuriated inside, she didn't dare to say much either. Just when everyone was glaring at the man angrily but hesitating to intervene, a voice cut through. "Go to the back immediately. Otherwise, face the consequences." As the Diaturanian god of war, Caspian had refrained from using his privileges. Yet, this foreigner not only failed to follow the rules but also acted arrogantly. Caspian couldn't bear it anymore. At this moment, Carmen noticed Caspian's presence. The tall man became furious when Caspian stepped in and glared fiercely at him. "Keep staring and I'll gouge your eyes out. Get to the back," Caspian said firmly, no longer holding back. Everyone had to follow the rules while they were in Diatoran. "Who do you think you are? I'll do whatever I want." The tall man fumed. "Let it go. We Diaturanians have principles and won't stoop to this foreigner's level," the person handling the counter advised. "In Diatoran, foreigners who don't abide by the rules will be permanently expelled," Caspian said angrily. He despised those who cut in line and didn't follow the rules. This tall foreigner not only cut in line but also acted boldly. He couldn't turn a blind eye to this. When Carmen saw Caspian's unwavering stance, she admired him even more. Then, Caspian raised 5 fingers. 5 counts. "If you're not at the back of the line by the time I finish counting, I'll teach you a lesson," Caspian said coldly. 5 counts. "Even if you count to 500, it won't matter because I won't follow the rules." "What are you going to do?" the tall man said nonchalantly. 1. Caspian didn't want to waste any more time and folded a finger as he called out. 2, 3, 4. The tall man remained completely indifferent to the scene, showing no fear toward Caspian. Chapter 178. I have backup too. The tall man's true identity was a special forces soldier from Tigra. But he was having terrible symptoms of vomiting and diarrhea, and couldn't adjust to the environment in Diatoran. Thus, he went to the hospital to get some medicine. The reason why the Tigra Special Forces came to South Lake City was to assassinate Caspian. However, they only knew Caspian by name. Since the operation hadn't officially started, they didn't know what he actually looked like. The tall man never imagined that the person standing in front of him was none other than the mighty Diaturanian, god of war. The people who were originally in line for payment saw the tension escalating and instinctively stepped back as they were afraid that a fight may break out and they'd get hurt. Carmen took a few steps back too. At this moment, everyone's attention was fixed on Caspian and the tall man. Though the tall man was indeed burly, Caspian was equally robust and completely overshadowed him in terms of imposing presence. Everyone began to anticipate the showdown between the two. Secretly, they rooted for Caspian because this concerned the country's dignity. 5. As Caspian's voice fell, he acted immediately. He threw a fierce punch at the tall man's face. As Caspian's fist landed, a miserable cry echoed. The tall man was completely unprepared, as he didn't expect Caspian to strike so swiftly. He staggered back a few steps and ultimately squatted on the ground. Caspian's punch knocked out 2 of his front teeth. The sudden scene frightened the onlookers. They never expected Caspian to possess such formidable combat skills that he was able to take down this tall man with a single punch. However, This sight thrilled the Diatoran citizens present. They agreed that it was necessary to teach foreigners such as the tall man a lesson. As Carmen witnessed Caspian's valor, she felt extremely amazed. Her admiration for Caspian grew stronger by the moment. The tall foreigner stood up and spat out a mouthful of blood. Now, he was furious. "Damn you! How dare you hit me? I'll kill you now." The tall man roared and charged toward Caspian. Seeing the tall man's fury, people around took a few steps back. Caspian remained calm. Just as the tall man was about to reach him, he delivered a kick. The next moment, the burly figure of the tall man rolled over more than 10 meters on the ground before coming to a stop. Another wail escaped the tall man's mouth as blood once again gushed from his throat. Despite being a Special Forces soldier from Tigra, his strength couldn't match up to Caspian. The onlookers were astonished and couldn't believe their eyes when they saw how effortlessly Caspian handled the tall man. However, they felt satisfied watching Caspian beat the tall man up. By now, Carmen had become an admirer of Caspian. Ever since he rescued her, she had secretly developed feelings for him. Seeing him standing up against injustice deepened her admiration for him. The tall man felt like Caspian's punch had crushed his insides. He never imagined that he would be beaten up so severely by a man from Diatoran as a Special Forces soldier from Tigra. Enraged and feeling humiliated, the tall man felt his dignity had been trampled. "If you dare, wait here." The tall man held his chest and struggled to stand up. "If you have any means, use them," Caspian said coldly. Caspian knew that the tall man wanted to seek help, but he didn't care at all. "All right. Let's see if you'll still be as tough as you are now later. I'll bring people over to teach you a lesson," the tall man said before running outside to make a call. He was a Special Forces soldier from Tigra, and several hundred others had come with him for the mission. Now that he was being tormented in Diatoran, he felt compelled to get his revenge. He knew very well that Caspian was quite sharp in his skills. So, he must find some comrades to deal with Caspian together. "Hey buddy, you better leave quickly. That tall foreigner definitely went to call for help. It's better if you leave now. Otherwise, he'll take his revenge against you later. Yeah, that foreigner doesn't seem like a good person at all. You'd better take advantage of this moment and leave," people advised Caspian one after another. "Don't worry. This is Diatoran, and any trouble won't be tolerated," Caspian said calmly. As the Diatoranian god of war, he wouldn't be scared of anyone. Not only did he want to stay, but he also intended to teach a lesson to anyone that the tall foreigner called over. "Caspian, why not call the Inspector General's office? Let them handle this matter," Carmen suddenly spoke up. She was concerned for Caspian's safety as well. "Don't worry, I have backup as well," Caspian answered. Afterward, he left the crowd and made a call to Sylvia. He instructed her to gather Macy and the elite team at the South Lake Hospital. These foreigners were acting arrogantly, and they needed to be shown their place. "I understand. I'm on my way immediately." When Sylvia knew that there were foreigners who intended to harm Caspian, she was instantly furious. Anyone who dared to lay a hand on the Diatoranian god of war would face severe consequences. Caspian then paid the remaining fees for Lana and continued waiting in the lobby. He was curious about what the foreigner was planning to do. "Caspian, do you have any backup coming?" Carmen came to Caspian's side and asked anxiously. "Yes. They'll be here soon," Caspian replied calmly. The incident between Caspian and the foreigner had spread almost throughout the entire hospital. Avon, Stephanie, and Lana were all worried and rushed to the hospital lobby to check in on Caspian's condition. "Caspian, are you okay?" Avon was the first to find Caspian and asked with concern. "I'm fine," Caspian replied calmly. Later, Stephanie and Lana also came to Caspian's side. They were relieved to see him unharmed. When they learned the whole story, they were filled with indignation. Such behavior was something they wouldn't tolerate. They strongly supported Caspian's actions. At that moment, a group of people arrived outside. The tall foreigner from earlier had brought 10 similarly large companions. Together, they barged into the hospital. Seeing them barge in, Those who were there to see the doctors ran away, scared. The onlookers thought the tall man had backed down since he hadn't shown up for so long. Now, they were even more interested, eager to see what would happen next. "It's this bastard. He knocked out 2 of my teeth," the tall man pointed at Caspian. Seeing this, Avon suddenly became nervous. He was only proficient in medicine, and not particularly strong in combat. If a conflict arose, he alone might not be able to protect Caspian. However, he would still try his best to make sure Caspian didn't get hurt. There was still quite a while before Sylvia and the rest reached the hospital. Hence, he needed to protect Caspian for now. The companions behind the tall man were all Special Forces soldiers from Tigra. They had found the entrance to the Dragon's Hill mine, and had been idle for these past few days. After receiving the tall man's call, they rushed over immediately. Caspian was prepared for the situation. However, what surprised him was that these foreigners pulled out guns directly. Chapter 179. Caspian is in danger. Caspian was somewhat surprised. He hadn't expected them to directly pull out guns. Even Avon was stunned when he saw the guns. With so many firearms aimed at Caspian, he didn't dare to make any sudden moves. People who had initially gathered to watch the commotion were startled to see the foreigners armed with guns, and quickly hid away. It was more important to save their own lives. If they got hit by bullets by mistake, their lives would be at stake. The once bustling hospital lobby suddenly became empty with only Stephanie, Lana, and the others standing frozen in place. Seeing Caspian in a perilous situation, Stephanie and Lana, along with Carmen, wanted to help but found themselves powerless. "Ms. Wildman, take them and leave. It's dangerous here," Caspian shouted to Stephanie. It was too dangerous for them to be there as there were guns involved. "Be careful," Stephanie said with concern. She knew staying wouldn't be of any help. The tall foreigner, who had been reprimanded by Caspian earlier, suddenly stepped forward and walked triumphantly toward him. Raising his gun and pointing it at him, he said, "Brat, weren't you so tough just now? What's with the fearful look now?" "Illegal possession of firearms in Diatoran is a death sentence," Caspian said coldly. Caspian had almost guessed the identity of these people. They were likely the Special Forces soldiers of Tigra. Otherwise, they wouldn't dare to show their weapons. With this revelation, Caspian was even more determined to not let them off the hook. When Sylvia and the team arrived, these foreigners would be taken down. Blustering even at the brink of death, the tall foreigner sneered. Once he pulled the trigger, Caspian would be a dead man. However, what surprised him was Caspian's composure in such a situation. "What's your real identity?" Caspian suddenly asked. "You're not worth knowing our identities. Kneel before me now, and maybe I'll spare your life. Otherwise, you're as good as dead," the tall man boasted while shaking his gun. Since there were many of them, he wasn't in a hurry to finish off Caspian. He decided to humiliate him first. "Stop daydreaming. You bunch of scoundrels. Get out of Diatoran now," Caspian said expressionlessly. Caspian. Avon wanted to stand in front of Caspian, but he didn't dare to act rashly. "Tell Sylvia to get here as fast as possible," Caspian instructed him. "Okay." He nodded before quickly leaving the lobby and giving Sylvia a call. Sylvia, along with Macy and others, was on her way when she received a call from Avon. She was somewhat surprised to see his call. "Avon, what's wrong?" Sylvia asked. "General Frost, please hurry. Lord Caspian is in danger. He's surrounded by a group of people, and they're pointing their guns at him," Avon said anxiously. "Don't worry, I'll be there immediately. I'll teach these bastards a lesson." Sylvia angrily hung up the phone. She then ordered the elite team to advance at full speed. During a lull, Stephanie called the Inspector General's office. The situation had gotten somewhat out of control, and it was imperative for the Inspector General's office to intervene. Upon receiving the news, Joey was also taken aback. She personally led a team and hurried to South Lake Hospital. After the call, Avon returned to the lobby. His sleeve now carried several needles. If the other party opened fire later, he'd have a chance to fight back. "I'll give you another chance. Kneel before me and apologize. Otherwise, I'll shoot you," The tall man glared at Caspian. "Cut the bullshit. If you dare to do it, shoot me." Caspian's expression turned stern. As the Diaturanian god of war, he wouldn't apologize to these bastards. If they dared to shoot, Caspian was confident he could dodge the bullets immediately. However, he wasn't sure if he could fight off all of them afterward. After all, they were elite soldiers from Tigra. "Do you really think I won't shoot you?" The tall man gritted his teeth and lowered the gun toward Caspian's leg. The others remained still aiming their guns at Caspian. If he made any move, they'd pull the trigger without hesitation. However, they had yet to realize that standing in front of them was none other than the Diaturanian god of war. The moment the tall foreigner pulled the trigger, a sudden glint of cold light flashed. A whooshing could be heard. It was followed by the tall man's screams. His hands had been pricked by silver needles. His entire hand throbbed with excruciating pain, and the gun in his hand fell to the ground. The one who shot the silver needles was none other than Avon, who had been preparing for this moment. The situation was dire, and he had to take action immediately. The other Special Forces soldiers were shocked to witness the gruesome state of the tall man. They hadn't even seen who had acted. The next moment, 10 soldiers aimed their guns at Caspian and pulled the triggers simultaneously. Caspian dashed forward in a split-second leap. A series of gunshots rang out. However, Caspian remained unharmed. He expertly dodged all the bullets hurtling toward him. Seeing this, Avon was prepared to act again. He was determined to ensure Caspian's safety at all costs. Those who were watching from afar were so terrified by the scene that they almost fainted. As the Special Forces soldiers failed to hit Caspian, they aimed at him again. Seizing the opportunity, Avon swiftly hurled several more silver needles. The soldiers cried out in agony as they were struck one after another. Their firearms dropped to the ground. Now, they were completely dumbfounded. Simultaneously, their attention shifted to Avon. Based on the direction of the needles, the soldiers identified that Avon was the one who had shot them. The remaining 3 soldiers promptly changed their target to him. At this moment, Avon was out of options. He needed time to position the needles between his fingers, but now he didn't have that time anymore. However, he found it worthwhile if his sacrifice could buy time for Caspian. As Caspian landed, he swiftly delivered several kicks. Each kick landed heavily on the chests of the 3 soldiers. Their faces contorted in pain as they collapsed to the ground. At this moment, the soldiers finally realized that their enemy was not an ordinary civilian. Whether it was Caspian or Avon, they were both powerful. They had no intention of delaying any further. A few of them exchanged glances. They endured the pain as they picked up their guns and prepared to shoot simultaneously. Including the tall man, 11 Special Forces soldiers raised their guns and aimed at both Caspian and Avon. Now, Avon had no way out. The needles he had were limited, and he couldn't fight back all of them in the face of their simultaneous attacks. For a moment, the 2 of them were surrounded in an extremely precarious situation. At this moment, Sylvia and Macy, accompanied by the elite team of Diatoran, arrived. They were stunned to see the situation before them. Sylvia and Macy held their weapons but didn't dare to act rashly. If they accidentally injured Caspian in the crossfire, they would become culprits themselves. Chapter 180 Annihilation. Sylvia knew the urgency of the situation. Even if these Special Forces soldiers from Tigra were taken down, as long as they were able to pull the triggers before dying, Caspian would still be in grave danger. Hold on. Sylvia raised her hand and shouted. She stopped the elite team from continuing their next moves. Every action she took from here on out would place Caspian's safety as the priority. Sylvia's booming voice caught the attention of the Special Forces. They turned and saw 30 to 40 people rushing in through the hospital doors. Every one of them was armed with firearms. This unforeseen situation left them stunned. No one could have predicted the sudden appearance of this group. While they were taken aback, Caspian swiftly broke out of the encirclement using his agile skills. Seeing that Sylvia and Macy were there, he didn't bother to take action anymore. The stage was set for Sylvia and Macy to perform. At this moment, Avon breathed a sigh of relief. If Sylvia hadn't arrived, both he and Caspian would have been in great danger. When Sylvia saw that Caspian was no longer in danger, she immediately gave the order, "Attack." Gunshots rang out. Sylvia had already instructed her subordinates upon arrival at the hospital to eliminate anyone who posed a threat to Caspian. Screams echoed throughout the lobby of Southlake Hospital. The Special Forces soldiers of Tigra were shot down by the elite team before they could even process what had happened. Carmen, Stephanie, and Lana finally relaxed when they saw Sylvia and Macy. The gunfire continued. Macy took the lead. She hated these foreigners as they were arrogant people who dared to act against Caspian and Diatoran. Having fought many battles, Sylvia and Macy recognized that these individuals were Tigra's dispatched special forces. Since that was the case, they were determined not to leave any survivors. Once they confirmed that all 11 of the Special Forces soldiers were dead, Sylvia ordered her team to cease fire. Following that, the 30 elite team members she brought along cordoned off the area. Their purpose was to protect the crime scene and to shield innocent civilians from witnessing such a gruesome sight. The tall foreigner died without knowing how he met his end. He couldn't have fathomed that his simple trip to buy medicine would lead to his tragic death in the hospital. The catalyst for this incident was his ignorance. Until their last breaths, they remained unaware that their enemy was Caspian, the Diaturanian god of war. Despite the elite team securing the area, many had witnessed the event earlier. The gruesome scene was too much for ordinary onlookers to continue watching. Stephanie, Carmen, and Lana were shaken to the core when they saw the corpses on the floor. It was their first encounter with such brutality. "Caspian, are you all right?" Macy hurriedly approached Caspian, concern written on her face. "I'm fine," Caspian replied. "Caspian, I'm sorry for coming late and causing you distress. Please punish me," Sylvia said guiltily. "I'm fine. A few Special Forces soldiers from Tigra mean nothing to me." Caspian dismissed it. Even if Sylvia and the rest hadn't arrived, Caspian could have handled it. He was only concerned that the soldiers' firearms might harm innocent bystanders. News of the foreigners' deaths would surely spread quickly. He needed to find a way to contain this incident. If the Inspector General's office got wind of it, a conflict between them and Sylvia's elite team would complicate matters. "Sylvia, call the new regional chief of Two Lakes immediately. I'll have him handle this matter." Caspian had a perfect solution in mind. "Yes, Caspian." Sylvia dialed a number and handed the phone to him. Stephanie and the others found it rather amazing to witness Sylvia and the elite team behind her showing such respect to Caspian. "Hello, who is this?" The regional chief of Two Lakes answered the call. As the phone didn't display a number, he wasn't sure who was calling. "It's Caspian." When the regional chief heard Caspian's name, his body trembled. He never imagined that Lord Caspian would personally call him. At a prior meeting convened by Caspian with high-ranking officials from the Two Lakes region, he had learned about Caspian's identity. He was still new to the role, as he just took over the position from Zachary recently. "Mr. Lynch, do you have any orders?" The chief stood up straight in his office as he held his phone, displaying utmost respect. 11 foreigners were killed by my subordinates at Southlake Hospital. You must immediately issue an order to the Southlake City's Inspector General's office not to interfere with this matter, commanded Caspian. Understanding how Joey operated, Caspian knew that if she found out about the incident, she would investigate it thoroughly. Just thinking about how to deal with her gave him a headache. Upon hearing Caspian's words, the chief was surprised and deeply curious. "Mr. Lynch, may I ask why you killed these foreigners?" It'd be a different story if Caspian had killed a few local troublemakers, but killing foreigners was an international matter. He needed to take it seriously. These people were Tigra's dispatched special forces. They secretly infiltrated Southlake City to spy on us and aimed to take my life. If I hadn't eliminated them, they would have continued to cause chaos in Diatoran. As the regional chief of Two Lakes, how could you not know about this information? Caspian coldly retorted. The regional chief was trembling under Caspian's questioning. Indeed, he had overlooked this matter. "All right, it's not entirely your fault. These people were meticulous, and they had a hidden agenda. Forget about other things for now. Immediately inform the Inspector General's office not to get involved, Caspian instructed. He knew that Sylvia had put a lot of effort into uncovering Tigra's special forces activities. Hence, it was understandable that the newly appointed regional chief of Two Lakes was unaware about it. I understand. I'll notify them right away. The chief breathed a sigh of relief. Luckily, Caspian didn't call to point out his problems. He feared that he might be fired from his position before even settling in. At this moment, Joey and her team had arrived at South Lake Hospital. Even before entering the hospital, they saw bodies on the ground, and the air carried a strong scent of blood. Such a scene left them utterly shocked. When Joey saw that Caspian and Sylvia were here, she became even more puzzled. Did you kill these foreigners? Joey approached Macy and questioned her. She had always disliked Macy. Yes, Macy admitted. Take all these murderers away, Joey ordered. Since Macy admitted it, Joey could rightfully take them away,